Welcome to Untold Physio Stories podcast, your perfect commute resource with physio failures, successes, interesting cases, and more from the physio and rehab world with your hosts, Drs. Andrew Rothschild and Erson Religioso.
Topical analgesics help patients alleviate pain and reduce discomfort. I recommend and use Helix Professional Pain Relief Creams with my patients. Helix has 3 new creams they've added to their line of topical analgesics. Joining their pain relieving cream is Triactive Therapy Cream, CBD Therapy, and CBD Clinical Creams. My patients have been raving about these creams, and that's why I'm offering you an opportunity to try these in your practice. Email my exclusive promo code MMT2 to Helix at helix4 pain.com to receive samples of these new professional pain relief creams and find a medical supply distributor near you. You'll get a starter kit with several samples, patient information brochures, and it's a great way to help patients and grow your practice.
Welcome back to Untold Physio Stories podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. E, with Modern Manual Therapy, Edge Mobility System, and our 4-month online mentoring program, Modern Rehab Mastery. Just FYI, this is Black Friday, Cyber Monday 2022 week to date this podcast. And if you go to modmt.com/turkey2022, that's modmt turkey 2022. You can see all our deals, which is 15% off of everything at Edge Mobility, 25% off online seminars, $200 off live MMT live seminars. And my co-host, after all of that plugging, is
Dr. Andrew Rothschild with Modern Patient Education.
Yeah. How's it going today, Andrew?
Doing well, Erson. Not too bad at all. Much less snow than you guys.
Do you have any snow?
Do you have no snow?
So you have 82.3 less inches than we do.
Oh my God, 82 inches. That is insane.
Yeah. For a while, we were in second place compared to Orchard Park, New York, or the Hamburg, New York area. We, as of Sunday, the total tally was 82.3 inches.
Wow.
Yeah, it was nuts. So it was actually, if you have ever seen my online lecture, if any of you listeners have ever taken my live or online course, they both have the same online lecture where I show a picture of 8 years ago, where what we called Snowvember, where we got 6 feet of snow, and it was me standing beside my mailbox or a yardstick or something, and me standing beside a huge snow pile. Well, it was actually 8 years ago to the day that this blizzard started snowing, and I told my kids 8 years ago, you're never going to see something like this again in your lifetime. And it turns out they did, much sooner than I thought.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So today's story is basically about that snowstorm. It turns out that my neighbor also he works for the state, and the state sent an employee in a front loader to plow our street. It was unplowed at this time, so there's at least 4 to 5 feet of snow on the street at this time. So only a front loader could get through, and a lot of these front loaders were actually already getting stuck all over the south town, south of Buffalo, New York, where most of the lake effect was accumulating. So this one managed to make it down the street, and we live 5 houses down. He lives in the 6th house down, right to the right of us. And for some reason, this guy who's obviously just like a construction worker or something, and not some guy who actually plows for a living, he decided to take all the snow he got from the top of the street and put it right behind our 2 vehicles.
Oof.
Yeah, so that's why I shoveled on Friday for 5 hours, and also I raked snow off of the top of my shed's roof, 4 feet of snow off the top of my shed's roof for 2 hours, and then I shoveled for another 2 hours on Saturday after another plow went by and actually put another huge wall of snow at the end of our driveway. But the 5 hours was me digging out our cars, plus also digging off of the several feet of snow off of my wife's Expedition, which was really just looked like a huge snow pile. So needless to say, I didn't do any of the things that I say to do in my like I've shown on social media in the past. Like this is how you should shovel. I mean, I tried as much as possible to weight shift onto my foot and to to then the weight shift onto my other leg and use my body weight or use my body, keep my core tense and be as a neutral spine as possible, then do repeated extension. And I did repeated extensions, but there's no amount of extensions I could do that over the course of 2 days that would empty the cup faster than 7 hours of shoveling and 2 hours of raking my roof. Would you
Yes.
agree?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. No, absolutely not.
yeah. It was crazy. For those of you guys who actually wear Apple Watches, I had like 1,200 move ring by the end of Friday, which is an insanely high amount that went around like several times according to my goals. So anyway, the strategy I want to talk about, and I'll probably make a YouTube video about this too, is how I prevented what most likely would have been a severe onset of acute neck pain and back pain. So knowing that my extension in my lumbar spine was very blocked. Like the more I tried to extend, the stiffer it got and the less I had. I mean, I normally when I extend, I look like Neo dodging bullets, which is kind of an old reference at this point. I remember my old business partner when we were taking clinic pictures to show people of common exercises, and he was using me as a demo for extension and standing. He's like, "Can you not bend back so far so the average person doesn't feel bad, like where they have to bend back that far?" So anyway, I can go back pretty far. I'm pretty good at limbo, but after all this shoveling, I was maybe had a painful end feel or painful resistance at like 5 degrees, barely any kind of extension. Um, so I got into like a stride stance and asked my wife to put her hands on my scapula and resist extension. So after maybe like 3 sets of this, and I was pushing back maybe only about like 5 to 10 pounds, not very hard. After a couple reps, I was able to extend 50%. Then at the 50% range, I resisted a little bit more. I was actually able to resist less because I was further on into extension and not so much in neutral, so I didn't have as much torque. But then I did that until I got to end range, and she had to kind of squat and do a little resisted extension. I'm still kind of trying to figure out a way how to do this because I've done this before on patients who had very painful extension and couldn't handle weight bearing. So we were stuck doing extension and weight bearing. I usually have them sit on the table and I get behind them and I have them resist extension. There was a machine in one of my old gyms that was very good for this. It was basically just a machine that you would use to sit in and you would just kind of like strap yourself in, and there was a bar you could place at your scapula and set the weight plates onto your right, and you would just do resisted extension. So I used to only give that to patients like after they were done with the rehab. It never occurred to me to do it for acute for pain modulation, but it worked really well to get me to be able to modulate my pain and restore my extension. Between that, I basically also just laid down for 2 hours on prolonged heat. Now, if you guys like heat, I recommend prolonged heat. If you guys like ice, prolonged ice. But anything you can do to kind of like just modulate the pain, calm the area down, desensitize it, and then restore extension after all that flexion right away is key. So for the cervical spine, same thing. My retraction, super painful, super limited. My trap started really tightening up. I basically had like 20 degrees of rotation bilaterally. And I didn't need my wife to resist for this because all I needed to do was just place a couple hands, my occiput, and lightly resist into retraction. So more of think of like an active assisted resistance where if I'm pushing back at 5 pounds of force, I'm resisting at 2 pounds of force. So my retraction is enough to overcome the amount that I'm pushing anteriorly. So just that light amount of retraction, I just did that repeatedly throughout the day. Then I also took another couple hours to lie down and just over prolonged heat. So by the end of the day, I only had muscular soreness, but all of my extension was restored. And the next day, I was basically only had like DOM soreness and terrible biceps tendonitis.
Oof.
from all the shoveling because you can't reset like an irritated tendon or sore muscles, but you can reset and rapidly restore range when you only go one way by trying to restore the other direction as fast.
I mean, that's just insanity. The fact that you even did it, I would have been like, nope, I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to stay here and wait till it melts.
Well, yeah, that would have been an option. And the biggest difference between this November and the last one is that the last one, I remember we missed Thanksgiving, which is only a couple days later, because it went from like 6 feet of snow to 2 days later, like 70 degrees. So I remember
Oh, wow.
I had to drive like two towns away, only like a 40-minute drive. There was no snow. That's like how lake effect works. It just falls in these narrow
Uh,
bands. But everyone around my area had bought out all of like the extra, like external water pumps because everyone was just worried, like, hey, what happens when 6 feet of snow melts in one day? Probably basement flooding. So
oh,
we
yeah.
stayed home. Yeah. So last time I was like, nah, I don't really have to shovel. This time all their plow services were stuck. Construction vehicles were stuck. Like people online were basically just like price gouging or being nice. They were like, hey, you know what? I have a construction vehicle. I have like a truck that I dug out. I'll come to your house if you pay me $300 to dig out your driveway. So even though I shoveled everything behind out of one of our vehicles, I was just my girls and I eventually started throwing all the snow behind my truck, and I just paid this guy $50 just to dig out my truck because it was like maybe 6 feet of snow piled up right behind my truck. So I'm like, I am not doing this again. And I thought that was $50 well spent. I would have paid him like
Oh,
$200 to dig that out.
I was like, I was like, absolutely.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what was the I mean, do they even like how they joke about like for in Virginia, for example, especially in Richmond where I am, like if it snows 4 inches, school is shut down for a week. Um, but how much was like things shut down like business and school wise where you are?
Well, I mean, we're pretty used to this kind of snow. Like, if it snows like 6 inches, they could clear it off very fast. If it snows up to a
Right.
foot, we're still pretty prepared with all like the emergency vehicles. We have tons of plows, tons of salt trucks, and everything. We can mobilize pretty quickly. Like, if it snows that day up to a foot, I would say there might be delays in some areas. There might be cancellations, outright cancellations. They have built-in snow days, like if you haven't if it's been a light snow year, they might just cancel snow anyway if they haven't been used up. But otherwise, if the snow days have been up, they try to clear things as fast as possible. Now, with this much snow, unfortunately for all the kids who aren't homeschooled like my kids, it fell on a Friday, so they only got Friday off.
Uh,
A lot of it was cleared off by Monday.
wow.
Um,
But still.
so I think kids in a lot of areas had to go back to school on Monday, if not just being delayed. But I mean, until Sunday, my area, Hamburg and Orchard Park, around us, where like Bill Stadium is, there was driving bans. Like if you tried to drive or if you got off on an exit that led to our area, police were just ticketing you because it's you're not supposed like a driving ban isn't like a suggestion. It is like you are not allowed to
Oh,
drive
wow.
because
Okay.
all it does, yeah, because there's 100 cars in our local mall. At least over the weekend there were that were just towed away after people got stuck. Like
Right.
my neighbor, someone from out of town, um, got stuck outside his house. They were like from Ohio. They got stuck in driving back from somewhere, and they thought they were just like sleeping outside their thing. So he eventually just invited them in, and they stayed with them for a couple of days because you just couldn't go anywhere.
No.
Yeah,
It's,
it was nuts. So
it's
I don't know.
insanity.
It was insanity, but if you happen to be super irresponsible and garden for 6 hours, or you shovel for a total of 7 hours over 2 days, or you essentially just do a ton of flexion, and that's what's to come. You've had back pain in the past. I want you to try my strategies about isometric resistance and prolonged heat to just kind of calm things down. Your muscles might be sore, but if you can restore that extension by the end of day one, I think you've really cut off or nipped a acute flare up in the bud.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, where can people find you, Andrew?
People can find me on Instagram, Rothschild PT, also on LinkedIn, Dr. Andrew Rothschild PT, and I have posted a job opening that we have at my clinic, Virginia Center for Spine and Sports Therapy in beautiful Richmond, Virginia, where you do not have to deal with 6 feet of snow ever.
Ever. All right. Yeah. So if you guys want to work with one of the hosts of Untold Physio Stories, you can reach out to Andrew or I on social media. And also, I apologize. Andrew has had good audio for the past couple of episodes, and I've had terrible audio. I don't know why, what's happened. I've actually gone back and re-recorded everything I said in post. If it sounded choppy, only half the time or part of the time, it's because I couldn't edit it out without re-recording the whole thing. So we have switched platforms, and hopefully our audio sounds better. Let us know in the comments. And also, we're able to leave surveys now. If you have any comments or questions or similar experiences or different ways that you're able to head off an acute flare-up of any kind yourself or with patients, let us know. And you guys have a happy Thanksgiving.
Untold Physio Stories is now sponsored by MyPT Insurance. Insurance just got easier. Through continued research, MyPT Insurance has crafted a policy that is economical and provides you with the peace of mind you need. Your extensive education, training, and experience as a PT allows you to assist clients in achieving their personal health goals. By practicing without individual professional liability insurance, you could be placing your career and future finances at risk. Whether you're a student, self-employed, or employed with a company, MyPT Insurance is here to provide affordable insurance coverage while protecting you and your patients. MyPT Insurance's plan also includes mobile coverage, which means it follows you wherever you work in the United States. Employed rates and self-employed rates are available. Visit myptinsurance.com/edge to sign up today.